If you're like any of the folks I coach, you put in the work and feel strong. Then you load up your hands for a push-up or a press, and your wrists end up barking at you before anything else even gets going. Now, it could be from your sport, maybe your martial arts, or even daily computer work. Later, after your workout, you stretch them, and they seem to feel all right. And during your next workout, you notice nothing has changed. So here's what I want you to understand. That stiffness isn't going anywhere with more stretching. What your wrists actually need is more load, done the right way, and knowing how to adjust it. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. All right, get down on your hands and knees and stack your shoulders right over your hands. Now, before you do anything else, splay your fingers out wide and press down into the floor and away from you, like you're trying to push the ground away. Now that press pulls a bit of the stress off the wrist joint and it spreads the load across your whole hand instead of letting it pile up in the heel of your palm. This is one of the wrist drills we have in our Elements program. And what you'll do is slowly rock your weight forward over your hands until your wrist tells you that's far enough. Now that's your current in range, and you don't want to force yourself past that. While continuing to push down and away, I want you to pulse into that range and back out, slow and controlled, 5 times with fingers pressing down and away the whole time. This alone can be a game changer for both improving the strength and mobility of your wrists. That's how to properly load the wrist, and it's what builds you up, so it stops forcing you to back off on your pushing exercises. Remember, the cues here are the finger splay and to push down and away from the floor. Those are the key points for any time your hands are in contact with the floor, whether you're working on your mobility or doing push-ups. If it's too much, sit back towards your heels so less of the weight is going through the hands. That's the main adjustment for everything in this video. Just sit back and take some of the load off. Before we keep going, I've got a request. If you know someone who's been having trouble with their wrists, do them a favor and share this video with them. All right, let's get into the second one. And this is where you're gonna find the spot that's actually giving you trouble. Now that you can load things, let's find where your wrists need work, because it's gonna be different for everyone. Stay right there on your hands and knees and start playing with the angle of your hands. But first, one more time, point your fingers straight ahead and test out that range one more time just so you remember the feel of it. And then you wanna turn out your hands to the sides just a tiny bit and test to see how that feels. Now after that, turn all the way out to the sides and rock right and left. Finally, point your fingers towards your knees. At each angle, remember to press down and away and rock a little into your in range, and just pay attention here. One of them is going to feel tighter than the others, and that's where you should spend some extra time using the pulses to load your wrists. Spending more time in these positions under load the way we're doing here is what's going to help keep your wrists from being an issue in your workouts. All right, let's figure out where your wrists want to be when you're actually pushing, whether that be during a push-up or a press. And most people plant their hands with the fingers pointing dead ahead because, well, that's just what you do. But if your wrist doesn't have the mobility yet to get into that position, it can't bend where it needs to go, and that load has to go somewhere. So it travels up the chain, which means your elbows start taking the hit, and if it keeps going, your shoulders are going to feel it too. So you end up thinking you got an elbow thing or a shoulder thing going on, when in actuality, it all started at the wrist. That's why if you find your wrists are the bottleneck, turning your fingers out to the side a bit is usually the smarter call. Now it lets the wrist sit in a range it can actually handle, so it can do its job instead of shoving the stress somewhere else like your elbows or your shoulders. Now you still get to press and you still get to train, which is great. But what's even better is that you're not paying for it in a different part of your arm. Then as your wrists get stronger and move better, over time you walk your fingers back so they're facing straight ahead. Old tweaks, tight spots in your body, and the way you're built, it all changes what works for you. So instead of forcing your hands into one so-called correct position and grinding through it, find the angle that lets you load without the wrist fighting you, and then work from there. This is the adjusting I talk about all the time, and it's what lets you continue to train no matter how the wrists feel on any day. Okay, last one, and this is one that I actually don't see a whole lot of people doing. Get back into that same position on your hands and knees. Now keep your fingers and your big knuckles down and lift the heels of your hands up off the floor so the load rides on your fingers instead of your palm. Now, I don't want you to fight to get the heels of your hands up there if it's too uncomfortable, which it probably will be if you've never done this before. Now this works the whole hand, the fingers and all the little muscles in the palm, and that's what gives your wrist a strong base to work from. When the hand is strong, the wrist has a lot less to fight against. Now, I want you to go easy here, and you got 2 ways to do that. First, don't lift the heels of your hands very high. Just barely off the floor to start is perfectly fine. Second, sit back towards your heels so there's almost no weight going through the hands. Then pulse into the in range 5 times, and that's going to be plenty for starters. As it gets easier, lift a little higher and rock a little more weight forward. If your fingers are shaking or you're feeling too much pressure, that's your sign to back off and build back up. Rushing this is how people overdo it, and there's no prize for forcing this. So here's the thing I want to be clear about. Don't treat these 4 like a routine you just grind out from top to bottom. Each one is an assessment. They show you where your wrists are good to go and where they're not. Now, maybe the initial loading feels fine, but one hand angle lights you up. Or maybe the last drill is something you can barely do. And that's fine, and it's actually good, because that's the information you're after. And once you find the one that gives you the most trouble, that's the one to put your time into. Work it a little, even every day. Going easy, the way we talked about, and things will start feeling better pretty quickly. And if you are looking for more, I put together a full follow-along wrist routine that you can check out right here.